Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, how we went from this to this, a revision of how to make Chelsea boots. First of all, let's have some
Coffee.
If you're new here, we teach, learn, and inspire ourselves around shoemaking. So if making your own pair of bespoke shoes is something that you're into, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well. So right now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what we have to discuss today. Of course, you know we always start with the center lines, having taped up the last, and calculating the last length. Now, everything relating to how we find the cardinal points of this last, I will leave out in this video because I have talked extensively about those. I'm going to focus really on the parts that really deal with boots. So, but you need to know that there are such things called the balls, such things called the counterpoint, such things called the vamp line and vamp point and all whatnot. All of those you can find in a playlist that I will put in the description. But if you're still new here, just watch and follow along and you get the gist of what's happening. Right now, I'm marking out the last copies, which is both sides of the last that is taped upon the last. I'm marking it out on a flat piece of paper, placing heel to heel and tip to tip so that I will be able to use those to create something called the mean form. Having created the mean form, we will begin to talk about the specific strategies that I deploy towards creating boot patterns. So all what you're seeing now is exactly the same thing that I do when I'm creating mean forms for shoes. So I'm basically cutting out the mean form, cutting along the middle of where the lateral side last copy and the medial side last copy intersect. This picture you're seeing here is just how I place my pattern, my mean form, to enable me digitize it. Now let's start with the boot. You draw a right angle, place the last that you're using on something to lift it up as far as it will go if you're wearing it, and measure out the heel pitch. On this last, it came to about 4 cm. Now place the heel on 4 cm off on the vertical side of the right angle and place the ball of this mean form on the horizontal line of the right angle. Then I'll draw in, of course, the vamp line, divide our vamp line into two, and connect it to the counterpoint. Now that line that we just drew is known, of course, as the quarter line. You divide your quarter line into two and draw a right angle from there down towards the feather edge. Now, if you draw a line from the heel to the ball, and then draw a line parallel to that line from the instep, see, that line from the heel to the ball and that second line, they are parallel. Now, if you draw, of course, a line from the heel to the instep and divide the measurement of that line by 2, that distance that you got, you mark it on that second parallel line that you drew earlier on. Then a perpendicular line from the baseline of our right angle will be the center line upon which we can take the measurement of the boot. So I wanted my boot to be about 16 cm. So I drew 16 cm from the point where that perpendicular line intersected with the feather edge of my boot. So drawing a line across there gave me the top line of my boot. Now, in deciding where my boot leaves off from the front center line, I basically use 1/16. That means 1/8 of the last length divided by 2, and drew a point away from the instep, and that is the point from where I'm lifting off my boot towards the vertical front part of the ankle. Then of course you draw another perpendicular line from the back height and then just generally curve that in to get the back part of your boot. I'm using a French curve, of course, to make the curves nice and beautiful. And then if you divide that top line into two, that will give you the reference line from which you are going to draw in your elastic. Now, this is the elastic design that I used. I want you to note a few things. It doesn't come down so much. There are a lot of things that determine the size of elastic. Number one, of course, is the length of elastic material that you have. And in calculating the length, you have to pay attention to the part of the elastic that stretches. Then the second part is also that I want to be able to factor in completely the backstay, the back stiffness. So I'm going to leave enough room for the back stiffener to sit in. So I'm just demonstrating that for you to see. So if I put my back stiffener all the way to the counter of this boot, you'd find that ample provision have been made on the elastic such that the back stiffener can sit in properly. This way, whether I choose to put in my back stiffeners before lasting or after lasting the lining, I would have absolutely no problems. So, but then again, for aesthetics, I curved the elastic a little bit forward to follow the curve of the crimped boot, which leans, of course, forward. So therein, ladies and gentlemen, is the design that we have for this boot. The back part and the elastic are usually not problematic. Where people have problems many times is in the front part, which you of course need to spring. Now I'm going to use a slightly different type of springing, but I don't want you to overthink this springing. All we are trying to do is to approximately maintain the length of the entirety of the center line of this boot when we lie it horizontal on a straight line, so that we can duplicate it and have something that is representative of the entire vamp pattern that we have. I'm of course going to create shots after this general class to demonstrate in slower motion exactly how I came by this. But you really don't have to overthink it. Even if you make mistakes in this springing, as long as it somehow is representative of what you started out with, then you will be able to crimp it, and after crimping you can bring back the pattern of the vamp that you had and use that ultimately to have a more perfect pattern. What you should avoid doing is not have enough material to work with. As long as you have enough material, that you have more than enough material, is never going to be too much of a problem. Where your problem starts really is when you have too little material. So like I always say, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So you can see that I have deployed that principle by adding enough ample room around my pattern, so that after springing I would have enough material to play around. After crimping, I'll have enough material to play around with. That point in the middle here, there, is indicative of my instep, which of course is going to guide, which is going to be the focus and center of my crimping, which again is what I am doing at the moment. The process of crimping again is something that's problematic for many people, and I'm going to also shoot another short video about 1 minute demonstrating in slower motion exactly what I'm doing. Basically, I focused on that instep position and then walked my way, having of course clipped the top and the mount of the pattern I just work my way on that center area, ensuring that I do all that is possible to straighten out the ruffles that I have around that area. Of course, I tugged around just along the feather edge when I was done with that. And you know, it's not the best crimping that has ever been done, but it worked out for my needs at this juncture. Then for the elastic again, you notice that I cut a notch there, indicating the forward facing part of the elastic, being that this is not a completely symmetrical elastic. So ladies and gentlemen, having coupled everything together, this is what I came up to. So like I said, I'm going to shoot a few more videos to especially demonstrate crimping and then again springing. So watch out for those in later videos. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the crimping and springing videos. God bless you.